Hey everybody, welcome back to the Seafarer Social Podcast. This is episode 26, second episode of 2025, and I'm delighted to be joined by the founder and CEO of Turtle Recruitment. It is Isabelle Rickmers. Firstly, hi Isabelle, how are you?
Very good, thank you, Kyle. Very good. And you?
I'm very good indeed. So typically on this podcast, we focus on speaking to seafarers, but every so often we will go off the track a little bit and speak to somebody who may not be a seafarer, but has a very strong link with the seafaring community. Now, Isabelle is someone who comes from a shipping background. Her family are very renowned within the shipping industry, and she has been in the industry her whole life. She's now gone on to develop one of the first digital recruitment platforms for seafarers, and they have some extremely innovative ways in which they do it. It's an extremely modern platform. But I think before we get into all of that, it'll be really cool to dig a little bit deeper, Isabelle, into your background, into your family's history. So how long have you been in shipping? How long has your family been in shipping? And what's your earliest memories of shipping?
Okay, so starting maybe with the family. So the family started shipping in 1834. So it's quite a while ago. Coming back to me personally, my father was not in shipping, but my grandfather was. So, and also, like, I grew up in the south of Germany, so no one knew how to pronounce my name correctly. That's different to the family who was very active in shipping or built it up in Hamburg. But I entered shipping actually in 2010 after finishing my studies, and that was very much inspired by the 175-year celebration we had in 2009, where I found it very inspiring to do my very best in order to, let's say, contribute whatever I could in order to move forward this tradition. And yeah, so I started with one of my uncles, Isabelle Rickmers, in 2010, and since then I'm actually, you can say, hooked. So I'm in there and stayed there, and I'm very passionate about industry, and I'm extremely happy to have now my own business, Turtle, that we started 3 years ago.
Nice. And what gave you the vision specifically to start Turtle?
So my last position prior to Turtle was managing director of Seaborn Ship Management, a ship management company in Hamburg. And I, at some point I knew that I wanted to do something myself, and I found it was 2019 when I also left, mid 2019, and I found that despite the fact that crewing was very relevant, so in terms of impact on, for the whole company, there was no innovation. So I think this was my starting point. And then I'm personally, and I think you need to have kind of a personal passion as well for what you do. I have a very high admiration for the work of seafarers. Always had, and I wanted to also to do something for them. And I realized also that most of them wanted what we call direct hiring. So we had in our inboxes, which were like info at or so, it was full of CVs from seafarers, but no one really had the capacity to look at them, to screen at it, because it was just a lot. And then you would not know whether they would, you would need to verify the information, you wouldn't know whether they're available now, and so on and so forth. So I thought, how can we basically make this more efficient and create a direct contact, which also the companies, like, they don't want to miss out on any good seafarer, but in a more efficient way. I think that was my first start. And then you have marketplaces, global marketplaces out there, which work very well. So I thought, why not adapting that kind of technology concept to shipping in terms of recruitment?
And that's how Turtle was born. You mentioned that you've always had a soft spot for seafarers and admiration for their work. Where does that come from? Was there a personal engagement you had with a seafarer? Was that from the family history of the business? Where does that root from?
That's a good question. Probably it's a bit of a mix. I mean, one thing is that looking at my father and my father's work, so he did not, as I said, he was not working in shipping, but he set up, you can call it like a social business for younger people. So I think this social caring part was something I was very much exposed to growing up. And secondly, I simply very much enjoyed going on board, talking to the seafarers, and whenever I could, and like the vessels that we managed were in port, I was very happy to meeting them. I just find it extremely impressive how they are able, the situations they face. I mean, leave aside Corona, also before, a diverse setting that you have on board, you're just thrown together and you just need to, work together and make it happen, When I sometimes see on the shore side how much sensitivities are between colleagues when you think like, and this is not, I think they deal with it very professionally and whilst also, handling risky situations, dangerous situations, psychological situations. So I think and then also not being home, you're far away sometimes, depending also on the vessel or on the trade. You're not sure when you can come home, which is also something, you need to be very resilient about, right? So I think, the diverse challenges that they face is something very unique. And I think they, seafarers, so, and eventually, they keep all the trade going on. So it's on that side, it's a niche market. If you think of nearly 2 million people worldwide, literally every company or nearly every company and also consumer is somehow connected to it because they're using products or importing, exporting products through vessels. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you look at it from that macro lens, it's quite astounding actually just how important seafarers' role plays in all of our lives, and it's only something that you kind of really appreciate once you get to work with these guys and girls, because to the wider public, it's pretty much unknown that everything in their house was brought here by a seafarer.
Absolutely. Yeah. I also held a presentation mid-December at the university in Berlin, and I also told the students, probably they have never met any seafarer, but I said probably every one of you has been indirectly in touch because you're using the products that they, carried over or managed to carry it over. So, and that also made them think, wow, it's it's kind of a bit of a B2B or a hidden industry, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And eating the food that seafarers are brought over as well. Sometimes people forget that. See, when you have your bananas, they don't grow in the UK. They don't grow in Germany. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. And to banana, probably everyone had some exposure at some point.
Exactly. So on this platform, we really try and talk about value providing for the seafarers. And I understand from a technological perspective the appeal of total recruitment for the shipping companies. But why should a seafarer consider using total recruitment to find their next job on board specifically?
It's for them, it's one thing that we see as the major advantage is the direct connection to the recruiters. So, and that comes along with what we call self-determined approach, meaning that the seafarers are actually they register and then they fill out their profile and then we'll activate. So we verify and activate the profile, which is a full profile, including all the information, because the companies and recruiters need that also in order to, make the right choices. And then they are approached by the companies, and then they can say whether they're interested or not. So it's totally to them to say like, okay, I accept what we call contact requests. I accept the interest and I want to move on, or I don't accept, or I decline because of X reasons. So it's very much up to them. To me, it's, you do the effort once, and then obviously you need to update your profile and be a bit active. But at the end of the day, it creates only opportunities for them. And the advantage of a marketplace is always, like another marketplace, is the same, that you have a broader reach to, more employers than you would have with, like, let's say, local players. So, but I'm not saying, you should, I mean, it's obviously local players. When I say local players, I mean local agencies. They have a big advantage. They have also very strong relationships with seafarers for a long time. They manage difficult situations with them and so on. So, they have definite value. But I think if you want to have this, direct connection or another opportunity that you maybe currently don't have, also one point that became more relevant as a motivation for seafarers to register is the free of charge. So that was something that was, I have to admit, also for me completely astonishing, that so many seafarers was still exposed to, illegal recruitment fees. So when we asked them why they joined, many of them actually, depending on the country, there are some countries who are very much exposed to that. They actually state that because it's free of charge. So I think, and that's I would call now, but at least for some countries, one of the main motivation as well.
Yeah, which is brilliant, but also insanity when you think that the Maritime Convention law, it's illegal to charge any seafarer for recruiting them for a position.
Particularly if you think of the question that we just touched upon before, that it's such a relevant industry, and then you have a shortage, and then you need new people like talent. That's what I'm always saying. Like an aspiring seafarer wants to enter this industry and makes this experience, and we know that because we did also surveys, and we checked on the exposure of these fees, and 30% of the seafarers of representative studies said yes, they are exposed, and then some of them end up with debt burdens. Obviously, you would not recommend your friend to go into shipping. So
Exactly. Yeah, and I think one of the things I've identified as well, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, is that sometimes the recruitment agencies specifically, that can also be a bit of a murky field too, because a lot of the times you'll have an agency which is trying to pay the least amount it possibly can to the seafarer and charge the maximum amount to the shipping company, and then there's a sort of a division of trust because the seafarer doesn't necessarily ever engage directly with the shipping company because they only engage with that middleman, and they don't trust the middleman because they know the middleman's trying to rip them off. Not all of them are like that. Some of them are fantastic. And I'm sure you work with some fantastic recruitment agencies. But I think that can also create a bit of a problem because we reach a point where it's like, who do the seafarers actually trust? Who do they listen to and who do they believe?
absolutely, yeah. And yeah, as you said, like there are many very good agencies, trustable agencies who do an excellent job, but also there are a number of agencies, and in this survey, actually, the majority of illegal fees, when we asked the seafarers, okay, well, not we, but like it was together with IHRB. So asking the seafarers who charged them the fees, it was the majority was manning agencies. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, but interesting enough, this is also something, this is not particular shipping. This is something that happens in other industries as well. So, other kind of HR agencies, if you want to call that, have similar, in other industries have similar issues. But I think we need to recognize, but I think the industry is already doing that it is an issue and that we need to do something about it. And it's not like we're MLC compliant and I just send over some paper or do an audit once in a while. No, it's happening very broadly. And so I think we need to find different ways to tackle it.
Yeah. I think it just gets a little bit more complex when you have such a diverse labor market that comes from different countries with different laws, different expectations. Yeah, it can just become extremely complex.
Yeah, but the Maritime Labour Convention is actually an advantage here because it's a clear convention that forbids these illegal fees, which is not the case in other industries. So I think on that we even have an advantage, and that applies to everyone. But yeah, it's really about the execution of that. That is the issue. But you're right. I mean, obviously in the global market, and then you have different countries with different, also maybe general exposures to corruptive activities, and so yeah,
Yeah.
it's not an easy take.
Yeah, I bet. I don't yeah, I don't think that it would be an easy job to do whatsoever. Um, huge admiration for anyone that can do it successfully. So you said you've been building this platform now for 3 years. Have you got any exciting numbers that you can share with us in terms of the amount of seafarers perhaps you placed, the amount of seafarers that you've engaged with now? Anything that you're allowed to share publicly?
Well, I think like some numbers we can share. So the database of the seafarers is, I mean, close to 200,000, but initially we were very excited about the number of seafarers, so the supply, which is by now really crazy. I think I had my first podcast when we hit 10,000 or close to 10,000 seafarers in the database, and we were all like totally, let's say, I don't know, enthusiastic about that number. Now we have close to 200,000, and we have also gained a bit more experience, which is like an amazing number. But what I'm more, let's say, proud of is the number of direct registrations. So many of them come direct. So the seafarers recommend other seafarers. Lately, we had a seafarer recommending over 60 of further seafarers to our platform. So that was a lot. Then, my colleague Hugo lately shared a summary of our interactions with the seafarers, and it was over 2 million So it was messages, emails or so that we sent last year to them, and the open rate was pretty high. Okay, I can't recall the exact open rate, but it was like very high. So the activity within the pool is very good. Same as the growth of the shipping companies share. Anything that goes on matching or so is linked to revenue. So, and we're private companies, so we're not sharing so much about that. But what we can share is that it goes well. Also, we're growing the number of seafarers being matched through the platform, but we also keep growing the numbers of seafarers being rematched. That's also a number we look at when we do or take on the mobilization of the seafarers. So that means that it's not only a one-time match, but that the companies are actually very happy with seafarers. Seafarers are happy with the company, so they go back, which I think is the sustainable, let's say, a good figure to look at it from a more sustainable perspective, that it really helps the companies and also the seafarers to be matched for us. If they were just matched one time, then it's nice the first time, but eventually everyone looks for longer term cooperation, and that's very good, because that was also one of the concerns that some companies had in the beginning. They said, well, if you have such a platform and you basically created transparency for seafarers, you would attract the ones who are jumping anyway. And then they would, maybe get a new request from a company, and then they would simply take this and that. And I think this is not, or my belief in the beginning was that it's not true, because the motivation of a seafarer to find a job is generally also, if he likes she likes the company, then they're happy to stay there. It's, why would you change or want to change all the time? And also, if you do so and your CV is or your seagoing experience is so kind of what we call like butterflying, then a company would find it difficult also to find interest in you. So I think,
Yeah, I've heard this.
yeah, so this is, in my view, not true. And talking about transparency, I think that there is already some kind of transparency, because the seafarers, what's very interesting, they know to a quite detailed extent the salaries of many companies. So because they have like informal networks, and they have WhatsApp group, Telegram groups, Facebook groups, what have you. So they inform themselves obviously about what's going on. They also share vacancies amongst each other. So I think there is kind of a transparency. I mean, also, and so we should not be scared of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's important as well, to have that transparency all the time. When we talk about recruitment, one of the things that we constantly hear online and within the maritime community is the shortage of seafarers. We're struggling to find people to come on board. Do you just, from your perspective and using what you see at Turtle, is this specifically focused on we're struggling to find officers, or is this all ranks?
It's mainly officers, so I would say really more than 80% officers, but also ratings. But the main, let's say, challenge for companies is to find suitable or skilled officers. And then you have the classic three positions, which is chief engineer, second engineer, and then ETO, which are the top, let's say, searched ranks. This is actually also the top matched ranks with us. So it's like chief engineer, second engineer, and then the ETO, because so many companies look for them.
Sure. So with that in mind, how you built a database up to 200,000, which is incredibly impressive. And you said that you mentioned one of the cases of how that's happened is that seafarers have been recommending this platform to their seafarer friends, and one of them giving you 60 recommendations, which is fantastic. But what is your sort of marketing strategy? Is it purely relying on word of mouth? Do you develop sort of direct to seafarer, funnels? And more specifically, how do you find officers?
Yeah. So initially, I can tell a bit about the journey. So initially, we started with the classic one. So it was like Google, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm not sure we did Instagram, but like we just tried, to be honest. But we got quite good response quite soon. So the concept generally was well perceived. And I think since these 3 years, we built up a very strong brand. When we lately had our management offsite, and so the task for us all was to think, okay, what is the core strengths of Turtle also? we all came up with the brand. So Turtle seems to be, or is obviously in our view, but also perceived as a very strong brand. When you look at the Seafarer NPS, so Net Promoter Score, so the feedback, they say also that it's very professional. It's also not only digital. I mean, we know that we're dealing with humans and not apartments or any kind
Yeah,
of product. So there's a very personal angle to that as well. We have video calls with seafarers. We're helping them in case of need, especially on the ones that are in the matching process. So, and I think this creates a good combination of, it's a digital tool, but it's also trust. Now coming back to the channels, now we expand. I mean, we have a very diverse set of channels. So it's WhatsApp groups, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, LinkedIn. We're still doing a little bit of Google, but it's very, broad. But the most valuable leads that come in or conversions are or one of the most valuable are the recommended ones. So who come through word of mouth.
sure.
I think that's normal because then you trust, right? I think I would act similarly. If some, like my friend, recommends me something, then I think you automatically have kind of this trust.
Of
Uh,
course, yeah. It's the
there.
most it's the most classic way of doing things, and typically if you have a great product, that's something that naturally occurs. But also, I think it's important to also, from an efficiency perspective, have sort of other mechanisms that you can fully control. And my experience in the history when I used to work for tech recruitment platform targeting seafarers was sometimes it could be difficult to develop digital channels that target seafarers specifically. Because if you take social media, for example, running paid advertisements can sometimes be like fishing in a pond
Mhm.
with
Yeah,
loads of different breeds of fish and you're just trying to focus on koi carp.
yeah,
You can't necessarily guarantee that the right people are seeing your advert. You hope they do, and you can do certain things like keywords and lookalike audiences and all this sort of stuff. But it's very difficult to target.
that's true. That's true. And as you said also before, there are also different preference of seafarers using different net. For example, Philippines Facebook, like classic example, right? But Facebook is not so much used in others. Or when we use the WhatsApp groups, we have seafarers who don't have WhatsApp. But that, so yeah, I agree on that. But I think we have a little bit of this first mover advantage, maybe because we're one of the first to start.
Yeah.
And yeah, I attribute it to our head of communication, Christina, to build that branding also.
Yeah, nice. I think it's it's fantastic you've been able to trial and test all of these platforms and developed a stable funnel now. I want to talk about something a little bit off road. That is the Chinese market. Do you guys engage with Chinese seafarers? Because this is a really difficult market to sort of get into, right? I mean, a lot of people say the Philippines is the largest market for seafarers. Well, yeah, internationally they are. But from a domestic perspective, actually, China is the largest market for seafarers. What's been your experience with that market?
Actually, very little. So we're neither strong on supply nor demand side. What I hear, looking first at the demand side from companies, is that I had some companies who had also some local presences or worked with, some managers who have local presence there, who had good experience, some. But I also heard from more that at some point they looked at the Chinese market, but now they moved away. One thing was because of the rising cost of the wages, but also because they found that it was not a really growing market, because in China you have probably other options than going to sea.
Yeah.
So I had these two mixed feedbacks from the company side, and on the seafarer side, we're not looking at them particularly. I have to admit. I mean, I'm sure we have some Chinese seafarers in the system, but it's not something where.
So you have, as you said, almost 200,000 in your database, which means that you have somewhere around a tenth of the market. You have their information. So I'm really curious to know, have you seen growth over the last couple of years of female seafarers? We see this statistic: 2% of the market is females. How does your data compare to that?
So hiring female seafarers has been very much on the agenda of companies, not all companies. So actually, I kind of three types. One type of company, they were from scratch quite open to diversity. So that also includes nationalities, genders, whatever. They said, I want to have the right candidate. Then you have companies who kind of discovered that, okay, let's increase the share of female seafarers, but they stay very much within their, restrictions, borders, which also includes the nationalities. And then you have the companies who basically say, maybe it's a bit too early for us, we don't know how to tackle that, and, just having one or two females on board, not sure. But the majority of the companies that work with us are very open to that and actually particularly looking for them. Now, so also our seafarer acquisition efforts were very much driven to increase the share. I think we have over 4% of the database are females.
Okay.
So we have more than the, let's say, the average share. But you also need to, I think, out of the 2% worldwide, vast majority, was it? Like, there's a majority of that being working on cruise vessels as well. So when you really look into the, merchant fleet and officers there, it's actually a very small share. But we have like an overproportional share of the females. But then again, you cannot grow very senior females from scratch. So obviously the very senior ones is even smaller share, like masters, chief engineers, second engineers, so on. So there's a big battle about them. So whenever we have these candidates, we also see that many companies kind of jump on them and try to attract them. So I think that's the same in the whole market. But yeah, it's a big topic for us. We're also very happy to support companies in there, because it's part of this, what I just said, like, look at it globally, spur diversity, and that also obviously involves, the gender part, which is, very relevant. I mean, I'm a female, so which I find very relevant that there's equal treatment.
Sure, I think it's cool to see that you have 4% of your database roughly is female, although that's still a small number. Like you said, in terms of the average, it's pretty big, and especially considering that the 2% you mentioned, a lot of it is cruise line stewardess roles, which you don't really think of actually. I think whenever I saw that, my mind immediately thought, oh, there's 2% of females on merchant navy fleets, but actually, if that's included in the cruise world, kind of sways things a little bit. Okay, so what another hot topic, and this definitely relates back to women, but as a general overview, one of the things we like to talk about on this platform is how we can make this industry appealing to the next generation, because we live in a world now where young people, and actually even in other markets, so lower economic backgrounds, they still have other opportunities now because of the digital world, right? Like a guy in the Philippines can sit on a beach and make logos for someone in America and earn a couple $100 a month, and that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? So now we have this sort of competition. It means that unfortunately the idea of going away to sea for 6 months naturally becomes less and less appealing. So how do you think, as an industry, we can continue to make shipping attractive to the younger generation?
It's a very good question. And that's also a question that is discussed very much on conferences. I think number one is listen. So we need to understand and listen to, the generation, what they want, what they need. I think some points which you hear often as a challenge for seafarers is, you just mentioned 6 months. So I think irrespective whether you're a mother, father, female, male, there are certainly people who, find it too long to stay away from home, from family. But there are also people who are very happy to stay as long. So I'm saying we need to listen very carefully. But I think the time being away from home is something potentially to consider. Secondly, also the options of, getting another job afterwards. So, there were talks about, how can you actually transfer the knowledge and experience that you gain on board to a short job? Are there actually combinations where you can work on the vessels, but then also for a time work ashore, which also makes sense for the company to, provide some experience. Crewing people or people working in the crewing departments have seafarer background, and that's for a reason, because they know exactly how it feels, how it was, and apart from the whole technical skills they have. So I think that, and then the third point, as you just said, like sitting on the beach and doing something online. I think, digitalizing a bit more also on board and providing them with more opportunities to not only connect with their families, but, making this job at sea less paper, more digital, I think would per se be a good idea, because it's still a lot of, what we also even see in the recruitment process, there's so much paperwork and like forms being filled, Excel file being filled. And yeah, if you're used to, only mobile, then I think, this will not be super appealing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very important that we move towards a more connected future. And I think that slowly we're getting there. We're definitely in a way better position than when we were even a year, 2 years ago. It's pretty normal now for most seafarers to be connected at sea, although it's insanely expensive. I mean, you speak to some people spending like $30 on a gigabyte, which is just wild.
Yes.
But I think that as time goes on, it will get cheaper and more available. So
Do you have any further thoughts also from your experience, as you said, in your former job, or like the experience you gained on the Philippines, how to make this job more attractive for the younger generation?
Well, I think that the number one reason why most people consider a job, from the people I've spoke to, especially in the Philippines, is obviously the high salary, right? But I think that the Philippines, so specifically focused on the Philippines, but you could definitely replicate this in India and in fact most major labor markets, is that they are all recognizing that there are other options available. So I think that the best way to do it, if I was in charge, was I would do exactly what we just discussed about, which is invest more into connectivity. And what I would do is I would give seafarers a little bit more freedom, right? So obviously there must be respect for the company policies. But what I would do is I would say, right, so let's say your shift is, I don't know, 8 hours, 10 hours on board, right? You need 6 to 8 to sleep. So in theory, let's say you have 2 to 4 hours a day downtime. Let's just say theoretically speaking, right? What I would say is, why don't we create some kind of, as a shipping company, why don't we create some kind of digital access or invest money into being able to actually increase the seafarer's skill set and not just necessarily relaying that directly to the seafaring role? Yes, it's important that we do that, but we could say something like, for every time you complete X course for us regarding your position, we'll grant you X amount of coupons or vouchers to go towards this graphic design role. So a seafarer can complete his job on board, and then for 2 hours he can go and earn a little bit more extra money doing graphic design. And I think if we open it up and promote the fact that you're not spending any money while you're away, so you're saving loads of money there, you're earning a great salary, usually tax free, and you also have the ability to do your own little side hustle as well, or play video games, call your family, or ideally also hang out with your crew. But I think it's up to them whether they choose to do that. I think that could actually make it more appealing, because you look at universities, right? When you go to university, and I know it's slightly different, but nowadays what you're seeing is that university students will be studying, so that'll be their primary focus. But in the sideline, they're doing little tech stuff. They're investing, they're learning about Bitcoin, or they're learning about paid advertising. And I think that's what the next generation are hungry for. They want to diversify their skill set. And I think maritime, although it's, we have to make sure that they're always focused on safety. I get that, but I think that we could really, really learn from the next generation as a whole and apply that to the seafaring world.
Yeah, interesting. I'm too old for next generation, so but therefore I said, like, first point is I would, you're maybe probably closer, like listen to them, what they, what they want to change. But that's a very interesting idea.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody wants to make as much amount of money as they possibly can. And if the sort of career landscape has changed, I think the average, I saw a statistic that the average person stays in the same company now for 3 to 5 years max, right? So, and that's because there's so many options. Instead of fighting that, you can't fight that, accept it and actually apply it to your role. And actually maybe people might stick around, or at least appreciate your brand and work harder for you and give you a better output. One last thing that actually relates to this that I'm interested is, do you have any data on the average lifespan of a seafarer? So how many years they typically work? Because I'm completely aware that this is a role where 90% of the market will have in the back of their mind a day eventually where they wish to transition to shore because of family or whatever. Do you know the sort of average lifespan of a seafarer?
We could check it in the database, but I don't know it by heart. The only personal experience I made was having just hired the second female seafarer to our team. That at some point of their career, of the female seafarers, there's a wish to go to the shore side, which is like when they're mid-end 20s or so. But I don't know, to be honest, for the others.
Mid-20s.
Mid-end 20s, yeah. So one of
Wow.
our colleagues, she was 20, I think, when we hired her, and the other one is in 20s now, yeah. And she has a baby, so she,
Yeah.
well, I have one baby. I'm just, preparing for the second one in some weeks. So I can fully understand I could not like just be away for 3-4 months.
Sure.
We decided 6 months. So I was not lately, actually last year, talking to the first Indian chief engineer, and she told me that it was super tough when she had her babies to go back on board.
I bet.
Then, so yeah. But
Yeah.
then, for example, this female, the colleague we hired, she also told me that when looking for shipping jobs, they would not allow her to work remotely, which is also something, when you have a baby at home, then it's very convenient, especially in the beginning, to work remotely. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So for the females, I know that there's a tendency at some point to look for something ashore, but I wouldn't know the time generally they spend.
Well, from my experience, it's also the case for the men as well. I don't think it'd be in necessarily the 20s, but definitely by the time they're hitting mid-30s, they're thinking, actually, hang on, my kid's 5 now, and I've only been around for 2.5 years of their life, so I actually want to invest in my child now, or I want to see what I can do shoreside. And again, I think this is something that the shipping companies could learn about, because again, if you create a program where it was like, we want to invest in you, so that transition is swifter. That you can be more than a seafarer. Why don't you come and work for us on the shore side? You can invest in your crew, and sort of create a conveyor belt of workers that either stay with your brand or they move over. But because of the investment you gave them, they gave you the best years of their life. So I think, there's a lot we can learn about the next generation. But the number one most important thing I would say, if I had to summarize it, is the next generation is much hungrier. They're very hungry. So I think we just need to work with that.
Yeah.
Isabelle, thank you so much. Good luck with the next couple of months. Well, next month.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope everything goes swiftly and easy. I know it can be a very sort of nerve-wracking period, having only been there 4 or 5 months ago myself now. So, but you've been there before. Are you and your husband excited?
Very excited. Very
Do you know what
excited.
you're having? Boy or girl?
A boy.
Oh yeah. Are you able to share the name yet, or are you keeping this zipped until it comes?
No, neither nor, because we don't know the name yet.
Oh yeah, really?
No, it's typically like we when we see the baby. So the first was a girl, or is a girl. So when we see the baby, then we'll kind of make up our minds. So yeah.
Nice. I like this way. Okay, cool. Well, look. Good luck. Enjoy 2025, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. And I hope that we can do this again sometime.
Yes, thanks, Kyle. It was very nice.
And let's hang out in person eventually as well. I'm sure eventually,
Yes.
once things go back to normal for you, you'll be back on the road, and I'll see you around sometime.
For sure, for sure.
And let me know if you come to London.
Yes, I will.
Thanks, Isabelle.
Good. Ciao.